the Babylonian Captivity. This period stands as a pillar in Jewish history. It is a time etched in memory, filled with both sorrow and resilience. Imagine a world where your home is ripped away, your sacred spaces reduced to rubble. This was the reality for the Jewish people during the Babylonian captivity. In the 6th century BC, the Babylonian Empire, under Nebuchadnezzar II's mighty hand, swept across the land of Judah. The once vibrant kingdom, the heart of Jewish life, crumbled under the weight of Babylonian might. The holy city of Jerusalem, crowned by the magnificent temple, fell. Its inhabitants were scattered, driven like dust on the wind to the distant land of Babylon. This was not just a physical exile, it was a spiritual exile. The Jewish people, torn from their homeland and their God's dwelling place, were left adrift. How could they maintain their faith, their identity, without the rituals, the sacrifices, the very essence of their connection to God which the temple housed? The Babylonian captivity was a test, a crucible in which the Jewish people would be refined by fire. The year 597 BC marked the first wave of exile. Nebuchadnezzar II, a ruler known for his ambition and ruthlessness, laid siege to Jerusalem. The city's defenses were no match for the Babylonian war machine. King Jehoiakim of Judah, who had dared to defy Nebuchadnezzar, was forced to watch as his city was sacked. The most prominent citizens of Jerusalem, the royals, the artisans, the thinkers, were shackled and marched hundreds of miles east to Babylon. They left behind a city in ruins, a shell of its former glory, but the story wasn't over. A decade later, rebellion flickered again in Jerusalem. Zedekiah, placed on the throne by Nebuchadnezzar, made a desperate gamble for freedom. It was a gamble that backfired spectacularly. Nebuchadnezzar, his patience exhausted, returned with a vengeance. This time, Jerusalem would not merely be subdued, it would be broken. In 586 BC, the Babylonian army descended upon the city once more. Walls were shattered, homes were razed, and the temple, the holiest place in Judaism, was burned to the ground. The destruction of the temple was a catastrophe of unimaginable proportions for the Jewish people. It was the physical embodiment of their covenant with God, the center of their religious and cultural life. With its destruction, a profound sense of loss and disorientation swept through the exiled community. Their world, both physical and spiritual, lay in ruins. To understand the Babylonian captivity, we must first journey back to the ancient Near East. Picture a region teeming with empires, each vying for dominance. By the 7th century BC, the mighty Assyrian Empire, which had once held sway over vast territories, began to falter. From its ashes, a new power arose in the east, the Neo-Babylonian Empire. The Babylonians, inheritors of a rich cultural legacy, were a proud and ambitious people. They had chafed under Assyrian rule, yearning for the days of their former glory. With the decline of Assyria, their opportunity had come. Babylonian kings, fueled by a hunger for power, embarked on a series of conquests, expanding their realm and challenging their neighbors. Among these ambitious rulers was Nabopolassar, the founder of the Neo-Babylonian Empire. He led the charge against the Assyrians, forging alliances and crushing his enemies. His victories laid the foundation for his son, Nebuchadnezzar II, to ascend the throne and usher in a golden age for Babylon. But this golden age would be built on the backs of conquered peoples, including the inhabitants of the kingdom of Judah. Nebuchadnezzar II. The name echoes through history as both a builder and a destroyer. He was a king of immense ambition and military prowess, determined to make Babylon the most powerful empire in the known world. Under his reign, Babylon reached the zenith of its power and splendor. He adorned his capital city with magnificent palaces, temples, and gardens, transforming it into a wonder of the ancient world. Yet Nebuchadnezzar was not content with mere splendor. He craved security, a vast empire free from rebellion and dissent. To secure his borders, he waged relentless campaigns against neighboring kingdoms, including Egypt, Assyria's former rival, and the small but strategically located kingdom of Judah. The kingdom of Judah, though small, held a significance that belied its size. It was the heartland of the Jewish people, home to Jerusalem and its sacred temple. Nebuchadnezzar, a shrewd strategist, understood that controlling Judah was crucial to maintaining stability in the region. He also knew that the destruction of its cultural and religious symbols would cripple its people's spirit, making them less likely to rebel. Section 3, the Fall of Jerusalem. The year 597 BC marked the beginning of the end for an independent Judah. Nebuchadnezzar, having already asserted his dominance over the region, demanded submission from Jehoiakim, the king of Judah. Jehoiakim, young and defiant, gambled on Egyptian support and refused to bow to Babylonian might. It was a fatal miscalculation. Nebuchadnezzar, enraged by this defiance, unleashed his armies on Jerusalem. The Babylonians, masters of siege warfare, surrounded the city, cutting off its supply lines and bombarding its walls with relentless ferocity. Inside Jerusalem, terror reigned. The citizens, trapped within their city walls, faced starvation, disease, and the constant threat of Babylonian assault. After months of grueling siege, Jerusalem's defenses crumbled. King Jehoiakim, his gamble having failed, was captured and likely executed by the Babylonians. The city, once a beacon of hope for the Jewish people, lay at the mercy of Nebuchadnezzar. The first wave of exile had begun. Section 1, by the waters of Babylon. For the exiled Jews, the journey to Babylon was a long and arduous one. Hundreds of miles stretched before them, a grueling trek across arid plains and desolate landscapes. Imagine the despair, the uncertainty that gnawed at their hearts as they were marched away from their homeland, their beloved Jerusalem fading into a distant memory. The Babylonians, efficient and ruthless, herded their captives towards Babylon. These were not merely prisoners of war, they were assets, skilled artisans, and intellectuals who could contribute to the Babylonian Empire. They were settled in communities, assigned tasks, and integrated into the fabric of Babylonian society. Babylon, the jewel of the ancient world, must have seemed like another planet to the exiled Jews. Towering ziggurats pierced the sky, colossal walls guarded opulent palaces, and bustling marketplaces overflowed with exotic goods and languages. The city throbbed with a vibrant energy, a stark contrast to the quiet rhythms of life in Judah. Yet amidst this bustling metropolis, the exiled Jews carried their sorrow, their longing for Zion. The prophet Psalm 42:4 captures this poignant sentiment. My tears have been my food day and night, while people say to me all day long, where is your God? Their faith was tested, their identity challenged in this new and unfamiliar land. Section 1. Voices of Hope and Consolation. The Babylonian exile was a time of profound spiritual crisis for the Jewish people. Their world had been turned upside down. Their homeland was lost, their temple destroyed, their God seemingly distant. In the face of such despair, it would have been easy to lose hope, to succumb to the overwhelming sense of loss and despair. Yet even in the darkest hours of exile, voices of hope and consolation emerged. Prophets, those fiery messengers of God, rose to challenge, to comfort, to remind the people of God's enduring presence and His unwavering promises. These prophets, though diverse in their style and message, shared a common thread, a belief in God's sovereignty, His justice, and His ultimate plan for His people's redemption. Jeremiah, the weeping prophet, lamented the fate of Jerusalem, his heart heavy with grief. Ezekiel, a visionary by the river Chebar, received powerful symbolic visions of God's judgment and restoration. Daniel, a young man of unwavering faith, navigated the treacherous waters of the Babylonian court, his integrity and trust in God never wavering. These prophetic voices, though separated by circumstance, became beacons of light for the exiled community. Their words, preserved in the sacred texts, offered solace, guidance, and an unshakable hope that God would not abandon His people. They became the spiritual anchors of a community adrift, reminding them that, even in exile, God was present, working out His purposes. Section 2, Jeremiah, Prophet of Lament and Promise. Jeremiah, known as the Weeping Prophet, embodies the profound sorrow and enduring hope that characterized the Babylonian exile. Called by God in his youth, Jeremiah witnessed the tumultuous final decades of the Kingdom of Judah. He warned of impending judgment, urging the people to repent and turn back to God, but his words often fell on deaf ears. As Nebuchadnezzar's armies tightened their grip on Jerusalem, Jeremiah's prophecies became increasingly bleak. He became a voice crying in the wilderness, warning of the city's impending destruction and the people's exile. His message, though unpopular, was a stark reminder of the consequences of turning away from God. Yet even in his lament, Jeremiah never lost sight of God's promise. He wrote letters to the exiles in Babylon, urging them to seek the peace and prosperity of their new home, for in its peace they would find their own. He assured them that their exile was not the end, that God had not forgotten them. Jeremiah's words offered a glimmer of hope amidst the darkness. He reminded the exiled Jews that God's love and faithfulness extended even to Babylon, that even in a foreign land they could experience his presence and find purpose in their lives. He became a symbol of resilience, a testament to the enduring power of faith even in the face of overwhelming loss. Section 3, Ezekiel, Visions of Restoration by the River Chebar. Ezekiel, a priest exiled to Babylon along with his people, emerged as a prophet of startling visions and symbolic messages. By the banks of the River Chebar, far from the familiar landscapes of Judah, Ezekiel received his calling. His visions, often bizarre and unsettling, were filled with imagery of God's glory, judgment, and ultimate restoration. One of Ezekiel's most enduring visions is that of the dry bones. In a valley filled with the skeletal remains of the dead, God asks Ezekiel, "Can these bones live?" Ezekiel, hesitant yet faithful, responds, "Sovereign Lord, you alone know." At God's command, Ezekiel prophesies to the bones, and as he does, they begin to reconnect, flesh and sinew covering them until they stand up, a vast army brought back to life. This powerful imagery resonated deeply with the exiled Jews. They too felt like dry bones, their hopes shattered, their future uncertain. Ezekiel's vision offered them a powerful message of hope. Even in their seemingly lifeless state, God had the power to breathe life back into them, to restore them as a nation. Ezekiel also emphasized the importance of individual responsibility and repentance. He proclaimed that God would judge each person according to their deeds, regardless of their ancestry or past. This message challenged the exiled Jews to examine their own lives, to turn away from sin and to live in a way that honored God, even in a foreign land. Section 4, Daniel, Faith and Resilience in the Lion's Den. Daniel's story is one of unwavering faith and remarkable resilience in the face of adversity. Exiled to Babylon as a young man, Daniel found himself thrust into the heart of the Babylonian court. His intelligence, integrity, and unwavering commitment to God quickly earned him a prominent position, but also exposed him to the dangers and temptations of a pagan society. Despite the pressure to conform, Daniel remained steadfast in his faith. He refused to defile himself with the rich foods and wine of the king's table, choosing instead to remain faithful to the dietary laws of his ancestors. This act of defiance, though seemingly small, demonstrated Daniel's unwavering commitment to God's laws, even in a foreign land. Daniel's faith was put to the ultimate test when jealous rivals conspired against him, tricking the king into issuing a decree that forbade prayer to any god but the king himself. Daniel, refusing to abandon his God, continued to pray openly, facing the consequences of his actions with courage and unwavering trust. As punishment for his defiance, Daniel was thrown into a den of lions, condemned to a gruesome death. Yet when the king returned the next morning, he found Daniel alive and well, miraculously protected by God. Daniel's faith, his refusal to compromise his beliefs, had saved him. His story became a testament to the power of faith to overcome even the most daunting challenges. For decades, the Jewish exiles in Babylon clung to the hope of return. The words of the prophets resonating through their communities kept that hope alive. Then, a seismic shift in the balance of power swept across the ancient Near East. The mighty Babylonian Empire, weakened from within, fell to the rising power of the Persians, led by Cyrus the Great. Cyrus, unlike his Babylonian predecessors, adopted a policy of tolerance towards the conquered peoples within his vast empire. In a gesture of remarkable generosity, he issued a decree in 538 BC, allowing the Jewish exiles to return to their homeland and rebuild their temple. Imagine the wave of emotion that must have swept through those communities. Joy, disbelief, and a profound sense of gratitude. The journey back to Jerusalem was a pilgrimage laden with both anticipation and trepidation. It was a journey into the unknown, a return to a land that many had never seen, a land scarred by war and neglect. Families packed their meager belongings, gathered their loved ones, and set off on the long road back to Zion, their hearts filled with a mixture of hope and uncertainty. Not all the exiles chose to return. Generations had passed since the first deportations to Babylon. Many had established lives, families, and livelihoods in their new home. The decision to leave the familiar for the unknown was a deeply personal one, fraught with emotional and logistical complexities. The return to Jerusalem was not a simple homecoming. It was the start of a long and arduous process of rebuilding. The city lay in ruins, its walls crumbled, its temple a desolate reminder of what had been lost. The returnees faced the daunting task of clearing the rubble, restoring their homes, and re-establishing their lives in a land that had changed much in their absence. One of the most significant challenges was the rebuilding of the temple. This was not merely a construction project, it was an act of spiritual restoration, a symbolic re-establishment of their covenant with God. Under the leadership of Zerubbabel, a descendant of the Davidic line, and Joshua, the high priest, the foundation of the Second Temple was laid. The rebuilding process was fraught with obstacles. Neighboring groups, threatened by the return of the Jewish exiles, harassed the builders and conspired against them. Financial resources were scarce, and the task of recreating the splendor of Solomon's temple seemed insurmountable at times. Yet despite these challenges, the work continued, fueled by a deep-seated faith and a determination to restore what had been lost. The Second Temple, though more modest than its predecessor, became a powerful symbol of resilience and hope for the Jewish people. It stood as a testament to their enduring faith, their determination to rebuild their lives and their nation after the trauma of exile. It also marked a new chapter in Jewish history, one characterized by a renewed focus on the Torah and the development of new forms of religious expression. The Babylonian Captivity had a profound and lasting impact on Jewish theology and religious practice. The destruction of the First Temple, the center of their ritual life, forced the Jewish people to re-examine their understanding of God, worship, and their relationship to the divine. This period of upheaval led to a transformation of Jewish faith, a shift away from the sacrificial system towards a more personal and communal expression of piety. With the temple gone, synagogues, which had begun to emerge during the exile, became vital centers of Jewish life. These local gathering places provided spaces for prayer, study, and communal support. They became the spiritual hubs of their communities, fostering a sense of collective identity and ensuring the transmission of Jewish tradition to future generations. The Babylonian captivity also saw a renewed emphasis on the study and interpretation of the Torah. With the temple rituals no longer central to their faith, the Jewish people turned to their sacred texts for guidance and meaning. Scribes and scholars took on increasingly important roles, interpreting the Torah, codifying laws, and developing new frameworks for understanding God's Word. This period of intense scriptural study led to the development of Rabbinic Judaism, a form of Judaism that emphasized the authority of the rabbis, scholars who dedicated their lives to studying and teaching the Torah. The rabbis emerged as spiritual leaders, guiding their communities, interpreting the law, and shaping the future of Jewish thought. The Babylonian captivity, a period of profound upheaval and loss, left an indelible mark on the Jewish people, shaping their identity, their faith, and their destiny. It was a crucible from which they emerged transformed, their beliefs tested, their resilience proven. The echoes of that experience reverberate through Jewish history, offering enduring lessons for people of all faiths. The destruction of the temple in Jerusalem, once unthinkable, forced the Jewish people to confront the fragility of their physical connection to God. Yet from the ashes of that loss, a deeper, more nuanced understanding of faith emerged. The synagogue, a place of prayer, study, and communal gathering, became the spiritual heart of Jewish life, a testament to the enduring power of community and shared tradition. The Babylonian captivity also highlighted the importance of resilience and hope, even in the face of seemingly insurmountable challenges. The prophets, those unwavering voices of faith, reminded the exiled Jews that God had not abandoned them, that their suffering was not in vain. Their messages of comfort, hope, and eventual restoration sustained the spirits of the people, reminding them that even in the darkest of times, God's presence and promises remained. The lessons of the Babylonian captivity resonate deeply in the modern world. In an era marked by displacement, persecution, and the erosion of traditional values, the experiences of the Jewish exiles offer a timeless message of hope and resilience. They remind us that even in the midst of suffering, faith and community can provide strength, that even in a foreign land we can find meaning, purpose, and the courage to rebuild our lives.